Okay, so my name is Chuck Watts, and I'm the past president of the first Empathy Surplus Congress and your Zoom Master of Ceremonies. Still got some people coming in. Today's the February 2021 Caring Citizen Solution Day Speaker Series. And our keynote speaker is Adam Hillard, a licensed practitioner of trust-based relational intervention for families of youth from hard places. So welcome, Adam. And before we introduce you properly, and I'm not sure if our president is going to be with us or not, Anna, we'll look for her. But I'd like to recognize our participants today. And as I call your name, I hope you'll tell us briefly where you live and what you do. Kathleen Caffrey.
Hello, my name is Kathleen. I live in Dayton, Ohio, and I am a project manager and general social activist.
Awesome. Greg Kennedy.
Hi, my name is Greg Kennedy. I live in Painesville, Ohio, and I am an HR professional. I'm a senior HR business partner.
Great. Oh, and by the way, I mentioned my name, Chuck Watts, but I live in Wilmington, Ohio. I'm a retired financial advisor for Edward Jones and a retired Episcopal priest. And Miriam Spate.
Yes, I live in Wilmington, Ohio. My husband and I have farmed here for 40 years, corn, wheat, soybeans, various livestock. And I'm the treasurer for Empathy Surplus Project and past president, and I'm a Quaker pastor.
Great. Anna, I'm glad you made it.
Hi, I apologize about that.
That's all right. Tell us who you are and where you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Anna Bruffy. I am the founder and owner of Seaside Fiber Arts, and I naturally dye yarn organically with tree product byproducts, roots and flowers and etc. I also work in Guyana in South America, and I've started fair trade with the Guyanese Amerindians.
Awesome. Anita.
I am a nurse. I'm retired from the VA, and I work with Anna in Guyana. My big push is for WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene, and human rights.
Awesome. Allie Sutherland.
I'm Allie. I live in Nucla, Colorado, which is the middle of nowhere in the southwest part of Colorado, very rural area. I do family resource navigation and parent education for a local nonprofit.
Awesome. Mary Beth, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm Mary Beth Beavis. I used to be Chuck's neighbor, moved to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That's how I knew Chuck. I was from the same area of Ohio. Living in the Cincinnati area now. I am a retired middle school teacher, and I've turned my teaching skills to teaching senior fitness. So currently with the COVID thing, I'm teaching 7 senior fitness classes a week using Zoom.
Awesome. Wisdom, tell us about you.
Thank you, Mr. Chuck. I'm Wisdom Kwala, currently living in Berkeley, Ohio, staying together with Anita and Dale. I'm a student at Boston University, pursuing Masters of Science in Project Management with a background in public health. And also, apart from that, we'll be working on a number of projects with Anita, like in WASH, that is water, sanitation, and hygiene projects, and also empathy surplus projects in Malawi. Thank you so much.
That's great. So let's see, a beer.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Abir.
It's Abir Sassi from Tunisia. I'm a textile engineer and I'm founder of a consulting company. I called it Abir Sustainable Advisory. I work in advisory for sustainable development and quality, such as assessments, projects on sustainability. I work almost on the 17 SDGs, and I give some coaching as well.
Awesome.
So nice to meet you.
Thank you, Abir. And Alan Hillard, can you tell us who you are, what you do? Alan is, what about Deb Hillard? Can you tell us a little bit about you? Deb is muted.
You get that coffee mug.
Yeah,
Right.
went to get coffee. Maybe
Okay, I figured out how to unmute myself.
Okay, that's good.
I know Adam personally. He's my son. And I
Awesome.
wanted to know more about what he was teaching to
Awesome,
others.
Cool.
awesome. We got another parent on the call too. I think Alan, did you find the unmute button? Alan Hillard, maybe. And Charles Watts.
Is she here?
Are you here?
I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm Ann Charles Watts. I'm Chuck's daughter. I live in Dayton, Ohio, and I help people find peace of mind through end-of-life planning, through wills and trusts. I also help people with the probate process when people pass away. So I'm an attorney with the law firm of Dinsmore and Scholl.
Cool. Thank you, sweetie. Jason.
Hi, everyone. I am Adam's brother.
Hey.
I am Chuck's son-in-law, which makes me Ann Charles's husband, and also son to Al and Deb Hillard, and friend to you all. I'm a mutual advisor with Edward Jones, and I haven't had a chance to be a part of one of my brother's presentations. So I know he's been doing them frequently, and he's discussing a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I'm raising 6 children.
Oh, Adam, let's see, it looks like Alan just texted and he said, I love seeing all my family from Ohio. So good for you, Alan. Glad you're with us. So President Anna, I trust you've got your script and it's all yours.
Yes, thank you, Chuck. So welcome to the first Empathy Surplus Congress. We are a member organization of the Empathy Surplus Project, which is a 501(c)(3) volunteer collective thought leadership training community of practice. Every day that we strive to frame a caring society that promotes stronger people, progressive markets, better futures, effective government, and mutual responsibility. And we do these 4 empathic activities. I'm going to ask our congressional board members to tell us what the 4 empathics are, the empathic activities. Ms. Kathleen?
Absolutely. Thank you, President Anna. All of our 4 empathetic activities help us keep us aligned with our collective through leadership training mission to promote human rights through stronger people, progressive markets, better futures, effective government, and mutual responsibility. And all the actions start with the letter I. Inward digestion, investment, implementation, and inventation. Inward digestion, we inwardly digest the latest brain insights of George Lakoff to frame daily the caring conversations to promote human rights.
Miriam?
Investment. We invest in weekly congressional hearings about how we apply Dr. Lakoff's insights to advance caring policy directions.
Implementation. We implement caring policy directions through partnerships with ethical businesses, effective government task forces, and other caring society organizations.
And invitation. We invite others to join us to promote a politics of care.
Great, thank you, everyone. Chuck, before you introduce Adam Hillard, would you please tell everyone how we can help us build an empathy surplus in their communities with the Human Rights Pocketbook?
Thanks, Anna. I'd be happy to. Our parent organization, the Empathy Surplus Project, has been a member of the UN Global Compact since 2014. And we believe our 4 empathic activities align well with their 10 principles. The Global Compact wants its partners to unite their activities around 10 principles to make progress on human rights, living, work, leisure, and anti-corruption of government for the sake of climate survival. And we launched the Human Rights Pocketbook venture in 2018 with encouragement from friends who work at UNICEF to partner with other UN Global Compact members. And together with financial partners and volunteers, we distribute a personal pocketbook copy of the Illustrated Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And we try to do that every year in our centers of influence to every student in kindergarten, 3rd grade, 6th, 9th, 12th grade, as well as first-year college students. And we're currently distributing just under 2,000 pocketbooks per year, and we hope to double that this coming year. And I'll be uploading the recording of today's event to our YouTube channel. And if you'd like a complimentary copy of the pocketbook, as well as the link that describes our 7 active ventures, you'll be able to find it there. So our keynote speaker today is Adam Hillard, a licensed practitioner of trust-based relational intervention for raising empathic and mutually responsible children. TBRI was developed by Karyn Purvis, by the Karyn Purvis Child Development School at Texas Christian University. And raising empathic and mutually responsible children is crucial to creating a caring society that we all want. Years ago, the National Science Foundation reached out to cognitive scientist and linguist Dr. Lakoff with a project proposal. And they wanted Dr. Lakoff to come up with a single question that answered, the answer to which would reveal a person's political and moral worldview. And the project had huge implications for political and moral discourse because it was based on 3 new discoveries that contradict 3 components of Enlightenment theory of rationalism. And those 3 discoveries all have to do with human development. And the first discovery was that 98% of all of our thought is unconscious, which contradicts the Enlightenment idea that all thought is conscious. And the second discovery was that all thought is physical and depends on physical mental structures in the brain, like metaphors and frames. And this discovery contradicts the Enlightenment idea that all thought is literal and mirrors the world per se as it objectively exists. And the third discovery was that people reason differently based on the physical cognitive templates that their minds acquired through cultural and individual experiences. And this discovery contradicts the Enlightenment idea that thought is universal and that we all reason in the same way. And Dr. Lakoff talked to many colleagues, and he had a psychologist colleague who came up with and tested the single question that, when answered, revealed one's moral and political worldview of either a conservative or being a progressive. And here's the question: when your baby cries at night, do you pick him up? And progressives answer yes, and conservatives answer no. And a simplified reason they answer in this way reinforces Lakoff's discovery of the 2 major nationist family metaphors that we all use unconsciously. the nurturant parent-family model of governance, or the strict father-family model of governance. And the late Dr. Karyn Purvis, who developed trust-based relational intervention, says that when your baby isn't picked up, your brain is traumatized. And TBRI attempts to mitigate that trauma. And I met Adam because he's my daughter's brother-in-law. And the last family holiday I had with Ann Charles in Dayton, Adam and his daughter were visiting from Colorado. And I asked him what he was doing. And not only did he tell me, but he also gave me this great little guide. I've still got it, Adam, on TBRI, which really inspired me. Adam is an licensed, he's an LPC, a licensed professional counselor, TBR practitioner, and owner of a small private practice, therapy practice, and he lives in Colorado with his daughter and furry friends. He specializes in treating trauma, family conflicts, and parent coaching. And through his work in child welfare and community mental health, he's worked with a variety of populations. Adam aspires to eventually have a larger private practice that provides individual and family therapy services to his own community. So please help me welcome Adam Hillard.
Yeah.
And Adam, just to make it even crazier, I just noticed that your other brother, Paul, joined us. So, so you're on the hot seat, buddy.
Well, you know, I kind of love it. And thank you so much for the introduction, Chuck. I appreciate it. I'm so glad to see everyone here today, including the little black boxes. I know there's always reasons that we don't turn our cameras on, and that's okay. Like Chuck said, I'm here to talk to you about TBRI. A little about me. I'm in Fruita, Colorado, which is on the western edge of Colorado, about 20 miles from Utah. And I just love it here. There's my family here, and lots and lots of outdoor play stuff to do. And I love doing that with friends and family as well. So let's get started, right? Because I have a lot to say, and we don't have a lot of time together. And I'd love to tell you about TBRI because it gets me excited. When we're talking about TBRI, it's a training that we do. As Chuck said, it was developed at the Karyn Purvis Institute of Child Development at TCU. And it's something that I learned about many, many years ago when I was working in child welfare. And I said, okay, this is good stuff. I heard about it, and somebody said a little bit about it, and I was like, I like it. I want more. And where do I get more? And they're like, I don't really know. Sometimes the training comes to our region and sometimes it doesn't. And so lo and behold, 3 years later, I got to go to a training. The training is a series of classes. There are 4 6-hour classes, and I'll talk in depth about what those are in a little bit. So it takes a little bit to get those classes arranged and get to those classes, but I got to go and I got so excited. I got a job with the company that did the training, which is Raise the Future. And they're an organization here in Colorado. We actually have offices in Utah and Nevada, and we service Missouri and Wyoming as well, I believe. Don't tell my supervisor, I don't know if that's all of it, but there might be another state in there that we service as well. But specifically, what they do is they support kids who are in the foster care system. And how they do that, they used to be called the Adoption Exchange. We recently just changed our name. And how they do that is they match potential families with kids who are waiting in the foster care system. And typically, these are older kids. If you're at all familiar with the foster care system, kids 10 and older are less likely to find a forever home. And so, you know, this agency matches kids with that. But that's not what I do. We branched off into a different team that started back in 2018 called the Post-Permanency Services and Support. And so what we do is we support families who may have adopted a kiddo. We also support families who may be caring for a kin family member, for whatever reason, their parents may not have been able to give them appropriate care. We also support reunified biological parents. Sometimes parents have a rough go at it and their kids end up in foster care, but that doesn't mean it's forever. And that's the ultimate goal of child welfare services, is to send kids home with their safe caregivers, biological caregivers. And so we support those families as well. We also support the professionals who work with those families, which is basically everyone, right? In some way, shape, or form. And so with that, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Specifically in my region, I represent 9 counties in Colorado, and I go around, obviously not now, I virtually Zoom in to trainings all over the state. I'm currently in the midst of doing a training in Nevada with our office over there and helping them with that. And so we do the TBRI trainings, and then we provide coaching afterwards. So it's not like, you got this training, now you have to remember everything and figure out how to integrate it into your life. We support in that. So if you guys are okay with it, I'd like to share a video. Is that okay, Chuck? It's a quick video. It's about brain development. And we talk a lot about brain development, and I'll talk about why here after the video, but I want to share this first. I'm not able to share my screen, Chuck, but that's okay if we can't share it.
Hang on a second. Let me give you permission. Hold on.
Okay. While he's working on that, I can start talking about TBRI. As Chuck said, it stands for Trust-Based Relational Interventions.
Try it again.
What's that, sir?
Try it again.
Okay. Perfect. Here we go. All right. So I hope you guys see my YouTube channel up here. I like to use free stuff like that because, it's free and easy.
We are going to tell you about our brains. Our brain has 3 parts.
The front bit is called the prefrontal cortex.
It helps us to think, analyse, be reasonable, rational, and reflect on stuff. Some people call this the upstairs brain.
This middle bit is called the limbic brain. It looks after our emotions, memory, and relationships.
This back bit is the most primitive brain.
It makes sure we breathe, poo and wee,
and helps our heartbeat,
and has the threat response inside it.
Some people call that the downstairs brain.
When we get frightened, our brain stem acts and makes us flight, fight, or freeze.
Hormones, which are cortisol and
adrenaline,
start pumping around our body.
And that makes us full of energy and strength.
So we wiggle, fiddle, giggle, and we can't sit still.
We also either flight, run,
or we fight, which makes us get told off.
Or we can freeze and look like we are not listening.
But actually what is happening is that we are frightened
and our body is trying to warn us and protect us.
That's the bit that means we can think, reflect, and be reasonable. And the bit that helps us talk.
So that's why when we feel frightened, sometimes grown-ups think we are being naughty. So if we saw a big bear, we won't be able to stop and wonder what kind of bear it is, because then we'd be eaten. All our behaviour is actually communication.
Because no child wants to be thought of as naughty.
Often, we just feel frightened and we can't use our words because our brains are preoccupied and trying to survive.
That was a great video, Adam.
That was adorable. Thank you for sharing.
I love that video. And, you know, to be honest, it's not all the way accurate, but we don't need to think about that. Most of the stuff that they said is exactly how it happens, right? And we talk about the trauma response and how important it is to be able to recognize that when we're working with, you know, families or kiddos from hard places specifically. And when I say kiddos from hard places, I'm specifically referring to kiddos who have experienced complex developmental trauma. Does anyone on here want to take a stab at what that means? It's a little complex.
You want to reframe the question again?
What is complex developmental trauma?
Psychological?
Maybe this is Jason. I was thinking maybe it's some sort of obstacle or roadblock during your developmental stage that leaves a scar.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Jason.
So I was thinking about some of the kiddos that I've worked with, or some of the kiddos that we've had in our home that we've fostered or taken care of, and we see it play out as like those pathways of being traumatized get strengthened over time so that it becomes such a natural reaction for them to go into that fight, flight, or freeze mode over the slightest little trigger, because they've maintained those pathways and they've strengthened those pathways so much in their life that they haven't had a chance to develop other skills.
Yeah, that too. Anyone else? There's plenty more. I mean,
Mary
we could have a
Does
conversation.
it have to do with the critical development stages? Because I study neuroscience. It's a weird hobby, I know, but we know that there's critical periods of brain development in kids, and the trauma that they receive can disrupt, I can't say that word, that critical development period. And then you have to work through that somehow. And sometimes you can work through it, and sometimes it's very difficult and it doesn't happen. And so they get stuck.
Yes, that too. I think we can do one last comment if somebody has something, but then we should probably keep moving.
And Charles says, coping skills to deal with neglect and abuse.
Yep. So complex developmental trauma is everything that everyone said and more, because we think about development, right? And like Mary Beth said, there's crucial developmental stages, you know, even starting in utero. And we talk about that in our trainings as a part of, we need this understanding. We talk about Karynisms, and what that refers to is Karyn Purvis is a beautiful woman, will always be, because she left a legacy here, and her legacy is TBRI. But it's more than that, right? Because we talk about her Karynisms as, she would say, with deep insight brings deep compassion. And just like we saw in that video, our kiddos don't want to be thought of as naughty. anyone who's been around, even kiddos who aren't from hard places, oftentimes their behaviors are naughty, right? And so we learn that behavior is language that we have to learn how to interpret. And it's a language of a need. What need are they trying to communicate with this behavior? And so we talk about that, but the complex developmental trauma piece is, over time, our kiddos have been injured, right? It leaves scars. What we know about trauma is trauma doesn't go away, it stays. We get better at working with trauma and dealing with trauma, but it's always with us. It will live inside of us. We think about this development as a path that our kiddos take throughout their lives. And we talk about brain development. It's very important to understand that. Most people don't know that kiddos can't even self-regulate. They don't have the capacity, because that's in our prefrontal cortex, right? Until they're about 3 or 4 years old. So as Chuck said, do you pick up your baby? Because your baby cannot self-regulate. Eventually they'll get tired and stop crying, but they can't self-regulate. They need that co-regulation or even external regulation. They need us to do it for them. And so we talk a lot about that throughout the training. I have a slideshow, if I can share that I'd like to share with you guys, and gives us some bullet points, and I'll talk through it with us. So bear with me a moment.
That sounds great, Adam. It's about 2:33. We got about 27 minutes.
Awesome. And so as I go through this, I'm going to skip over some stuff. It may seem a little rushed because, like I said, these are 4 6-hour classes. And so we're going to go over it here in about 27 minutes. But I do encourage you to interrupt me and ask questions, because it's okay if we don't get all the way through it. So I hope we're all seeing my understanding and healing trauma. Yes, perfect. So what is TBRI? There is an animate that was on the Eventbrite. I'm so glad you included that, Chuck. The TBRI animate, if you get it 3 minutes of your time, watch it. It's super cute, and it talks about TBRI and all that's involved in it in 3 minutes. It's pretty cool. It's a holistic intervention. And when we talk about holistic, that we take from attachment theory, we take from trauma research, we take from developmental research, and we put it all together. Well, Karyn and her team put it all together and allowed us to use it. Thanks for her. It's evidence-based. That's the big thing these days. It needs to be evidence-based. There has to be research involved that says this actually works. The team at TCU has taken this all over the world and used it successfully, which is kind of cool. One of our mentors told a story to us one time about using the different principles. And the 3 principles of TBRI are connecting, empowering, and correcting. And she talked about going over to a country, I think it was on the continent of Africa, where they went and they visited this village and they shared with them the principles of connecting. And that's all the time that they had on that trip. And so they left and encouraged, them to start using their new learned information and skills. And they went to go back and start share empowering and correcting. And they didn't need to, because as I'll talk about, connecting is the foundation of TBRI. This is an approach to caregiving that is developmentally respectful. It's responsive to trauma and attachment based. And so we really talk about the attachment theory that's involved and how important that is throughout our lifespan. We all have an attachment, right? We all have an adult attachment. And that stems from the first 18 months of our lives and how our caregivers were. And I'll talk a little bit about that based on how much time we have. So TBRI is based on over 50 years of child developmental research. It's been proven successful, neurochemical and behavioral changes. That's what we're really looking for, is we want to change the brain. Research around neuroplasticity tells us we can change the brain. That's fabulous. How do we do that? It's pretty complex. But this model offers hands-on immediate tools for parents and professionals to use with their kiddos. You know, often when we talk about kiddos who have been harmed.
Adam, we've got a question here. From Miriam. Can TBRI be applied to adults who experienced neglect as a child but got through it to adulthood, but still suffer residual effects? She stole my question.
That is a wonderful question, and I'm so glad you asked, because yes, TBRI was developed, and the research is specifically around kiddos, right? But I always talk about its relationships, and it will improve relationships. And many of the things involved in TBRI are things you're already doing in your relationships. This is just a neat and tidy model that says, if you do these things, your relationships will gain trust, right? Because that's really where relationships start, is that trust-based.
Abir is wondering if TBRI can treat phobias.
Yes, but more indirectly. It's not really a treatment model per se. It's a caregiving model. And so this is for people who provide, specifically parents, typically is who we work with. But if you're a caregiver of any sort, yes, you can use TBRI. One of the tenets of TBRI is that felt safety is a need that needs to be addressed initially. And felt safety is kind of this primitive thing that we have inside of us, right? It's not, my doors are locked, I have a big dog and an alarm, and I live in a really safe place. That's not felt safety, right? And we talk about it in ways that when we have those traumatic experiences, just like Jason said, they leave the scars, right? And that leaves us not feeling safe sometimes. Real quick, I'm going to talk about the brain. I know we went over it in the video. Real quick though, I do this hand model of the brain, and I'm going to race through it because we have limited time. Brainstem, you guys know that. Downstairs brain. This is more like the crisis brain, survival brain, autonomous function type stuff, right? If you want a more detailed version, Dan Siegel's hand model of the brain this is Dan Siegel's. But this part is really important, and this is the amygdala, right? And we say this is the watchdog of the brain, always looking out for danger, right? Which is important. This is a survival thing. Our brains keep us alive. That's their basic function, is to keep us alive, keep us surviving. And so when this amygdala calls out danger, it activates the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? And it also closes the door on our upstairs brain. So we can't get up to our prefrontal cortex that thinks about logical, rational thinking, that does self-regulation, right? We can't get there when we're in this part of our brain. This is where our kiddos who come from hard places live, is in their survival brain. They're always fight, flight, or freeze. And so they're always on guard for danger. The more we use that amygdala, the stronger it gets, which creates a term that we use in treatment called hypervigilance. If you ever met a kid who has lots of trauma in their past, watch their eyes, because they're always looking for those dangerous things. And so, here are some of the risk factors. I'm not going to go into details about this. If you guys want more information about risk factors, look up a study about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. It's kind of a big deal, and it tells us a lot, and more is coming from it. I think it was done by Kaiser Permanente, potentially. I could be wrong. I don't remember all that stuff, and that's okay. So with the remainder of our time, I think I'd like to, here's a couple of books. They're really good books. I can share this after the fact as well. And I can stay on a little bit afterwards with questions if anybody wants to do that, as long as it's okay with our host, Chuck. So
absolutely. So that would be great. You've got about another 18 minutes if people want to ask questions. And one that popped up to me during your hand model was, and your comment that about brain plasticity is our whole focus, Empathy Surplus project, is to change brains. And one of the reasons we invited you was because we knew that you were going to talk about brain changing. And so this is right down our alley. And I thought it was critical when you said that we've got to start at a safe place because our political discourse and our moral discourse right now are in dangerous places. So anything you can give us right now about child development that you think relates to also having better conversations with our colleagues, because we do want an atmosphere of care, I think would be helpful.
yeah, I agree with that 100%, and I think we're going there. As you guys can see, we have the attachment cycle up on the screen. What I'll say is there are people who do their like dissertation and thesis on the attachment cycle, so I don't know it all. But here's what I do know. And I believe I can use my mouse to point. You guys can see my pointer?
Yes.
Wonderful. So this is the attachment cycle, and this is what happens over the first 18 months of life. And in fact, I would say this happens starting in utero, right? Because mamas are meeting needs in utero as well. It's different. It definitely looks different. You can't pick up your kiddo and meet the need and give them a bottle. But they're still meeting those needs and sharing in those things. And so this is what happens when babies cry, right? Needs expressed. This is their voice. Babies cry. They're distressed. Excitatory neurotransmitters are activated and dispersed throughout the body, right? This is what's referred to as the sympathetic nervous system. Cortisol, adrenaline, those sorts of things. When the need gets met, mom comes, changes the diaper, feeds the baby, and yes, I refer to mom. Usually moms are primary caregivers. Okay, whoever the primary caregiver is at the time, meets that need, comforts the baby. Parasympathetic nervous system is activated, and inhibitory neurotransmitters are dispersed. Serotonin, dopamine, those sorts of things, right? That make us feel calm and comforted. And over the first 18 months of life, this happens hundreds of thousands of times, right? And Karyn refers to this as the giving of yeses. And this is the foundation for trust, self-worth, self-efficacy, having a voice. I can express my need and someone will meet it. Self-regulation and mental health, okay? And without intervention, the attachment style that we have at 18 months is what we will have for life. This is our foundation of relationships and how we see relationships. So throughout this time, the attachment cycle is giving that felt safety, right? I can cry, mom, dad's gonna come, my needs are gonna be taken care of, they're gonna sing to me, it's gonna be okay. What happens for our kiddos from hard places, or sometimes even kiddos who aren't from hard places, they end up in an insecure attachment, right? And I don't have time to talk about that today. But with the insecure attachment, this can lead to ongoing mental health struggles throughout life and ongoing struggles with relationships. You know, the insecure attachment can be very disorganized at some points. There is one that is referred to as disorganized attachment, which basically means they can't make any sense. The researchers can't make any sense of the pattern of dealing with distress. The other two types of insecure attachment, there is a pattern. Sometimes it's an unhealthy pattern. But here's what happens throughout our lifespan. We're very creative individuals. Even as babies, we figure out ways to get our needs met. Sometimes those needs are maladaptive, or sometimes those behaviors are maladaptive. The needs aren't. You know, the needs are primitive. We need our needs met. But the behaviors to get those met become maladaptive behaviors. And some people carry those throughout adulthood, right? I'm sure you all know adults that have behaviors that aren't really healthy to get their needs met, but they work. And until we offer our kiddos a behavior as a replacement and help them learn that behavior in a kind, compassionate way, we can't take away that other behavior because it's getting their needs met. Right? If we can figure out what the need is and meet it proactively, that makes our life a little bit easier as well. Okay. All right, so that is a real quick and dirty explanation of the attachment cycle. I apologize to all those attachment folks out there who
So Adam, I don't know where you're headed, but can you talk about how to replace the behavior?
How to replace the behavior? It starts at felt safety, right? It starts at, you know, giving the felt safety, and it starts with a compassionate individual, a coach per se. We talk about be the coach, not the warden, right? We want to coach whoever we're working with, whether it be a kiddo or an adult. We want to coach them in a gentle way on how to, one, figure out what their need is, right? Two, feel safe enough to ask for what they need. And three, develop that new behavior, because as all behaviors, they take practice and learning. Kind of to wrap things up with the attachment piece of things, you know, our attachment is a way to get our needs met from external sources, right? Oftentimes we have to get our needs met. The four markers of a securely attached adult are being able to give care, being able to receive care, right? Two very different things. Being able to negotiate your needs, as well as being your autonomous self. You know, I'm okay in a group, I'm also okay alone. And that's what we strive for. But it's a learning process, and we talk about how it's a journey, not a sprint, right? You have to give the time and offer solutions that work for the individual. And we do that through choices and compromise and sharing power.
Yes, that was very good. We've got about 10 minutes before we stop the recording and let people who need to go. And it's nice that you said you can continue. And so I want to ask people who are going to go to get their questions in early. And it looks like we've got one. Ann Charles said, I think I heard you say the giving of yeses. If I heard that correctly, there are various techniques for communicating with adults that start with saying yes, getting them to say yes in return. I'm interested in whether I heard that correctly. That's Ann Charles. And Anna has a question.
Yes to Ann Charles. You did hear that correctly. It's really, you know, it's not always the word yes, right? It's being able to meet that need and help the individual feel safe, right? That comfort part of the attachment cycle.
And if you've got a question, I just learned from Anna that if you click on the raise your hand down in reactions, it pops up and I can see it, and maybe Anna can see it too. So Anna, what's your question?
So what do you recommend as an adult, how to treat past trauma? What do you think the best way is? Would it just to be to get a, you know, kind of like a psychologist or psychiatrist as in therapy like that? Or would there be, there would be like group setting? Sorry, I'm at a friend's house. There's a cat. And so like I said, what would you recommend is the best way to treat or assist adults with still past trauma?
Oh goodness, that's a great question. And you know, there's various different things that you can do. But I would recommend professional help. Honestly, the process can be done on your own, but it can be really rough, and there can be stuff that comes up, because what we know about trauma is trauma doesn't tell time, right? And so when you get into the trauma, you're reliving it like it was happening right now. And so, you know, professional assistance, various modalities. Some people use EMDR. There's a lot of people that use DBT, which is dialectical behavior therapy. There's art therapy, there's narrative therapy. And really what I found in my work with individuals, kids and adults with trauma, is it really needs to be kind of customized to that person and what they need. And that's something we learned early on. Sorry, Chuck.
Adam, we've got 3 other questions.
Okay.
Mary Beth wants to know, or maybe she's saying as a side note, we know that negative emotions hurt because they activate the same part of the brain as when we experience physical pain. And Abir asks, what kind of coaching, and Allie has her hand up, what kind of coaching could be giving to concerned children? Is there a specific timeline? Is it clear that it's very complex?
Well, the coaching that we do is specific to the parents in implementing the TBRI principles to help the kiddos, right? Because the parents have more access to their whole brain. And so
you're working with parents.
Correct.
So Wisdom asked, who's responsible for giving the coaching to the traumatized child? And you're talking parents.
Right. The parents then become responsible for implementing these strategies to help their traumatized kiddo. Because really, these are parenting strategies. You guys can still see my PowerPoint, and it's on traditional parenting. And these 3 principles are the principles of TBRI: correcting, empowering, and connecting. And so typically we spend most of our time in the correcting phase, right? Because behavior gets our attention. And so we want to flip the triangle in TBRI and do less correcting and empower and spend most of our time with that connection, because what we've learned and what Karyn learned is that connection is what's going to help our kids heal, right? They need that space to.
I want to ask Allie to ask her question before it gets too late. Allie, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, sorry. It just took me a second to get the button. Hey, Adam, do you offer any more in-depth trainings than this for like those of us who maybe like, I do this, like a lot of this, and a lot of what you're saying is really stuff that, you know, I do already, and it sounds a lot like Love and Logic, and it sounds a lot like the social emotional push from the CDE that they're getting, and all these things combined. I really would like to get like into the nitty gritty of it and find out what is different in TBRI than these other things. Do you offer anything more extensive than this?
Yes, yes, and double yes, and we'd love to have you in class. So message me. You know how to get a hold of me.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Great. Thank you.
And I see the chat now. If the parents aren't there, then any caregiver can implement these strategies. It can be a coach, it can be a teacher. It has to be a safe person. You know, there's that saying out there, it takes a village. It truly does take a village of safe people to raise children. And the more safe people, the better. I don't know that I answered everyone's questions.
Well, like I said, you're going to hang around a little bit. I just wanted to make sure that those people who had to leave, you know, we advertised an hour, and we're going to stop the recording in an hour. But we don't, since you can stick around, we don't have to stop the Zoom for in an hour. So I just wanted to make sure everybody that wanted to engage, you could. Any other questions for Adam? We got a couple of more minutes.
I want to say one last thing. If anybody's going to jump off, you can find more information about TBRI at child.tcu.edu. There's even a caregiver series that you can watch on DVD if that's something you're interested. I would say my trainings are better, but they're not as available either.
You could do your training on Zoom, couldn't you?
I do my trainings on Zoom.
Yeah, so even though you're in Colorado, you could, I like the TBRI practitioner network. You know, if somebody wanted something, you know, a little closer, I was surprised when I clicked on Ohio that there were a ton of people who do what you do in Ohio. So, Abir, you've got your hand up one more time?
Yes, he has already answered my question, so it's okay. But just I will not share the link of the video for YouTube, please.
The link is, if you go to YouTube, and it's and search for First Empathy Surplus Congress, and I'll also email it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So I'm going to, since we're sort of at a lull here, I'm going to stop the recording early, and we can just continue, and you can just do your thing. And I'm so, okay. Adam, thank you so much for being with us, and you've inspired me to really pay more attention to the connection part in the part of our political and moral dialogue, you know, and which is, you know, so needed. You know, our motto is caring citizens are the solution, and if we're always fighting, that's not much of a, you know, not much of a model. So we need to try to at least connect, don't we? Yeah.
It's hard to make any progress when you're going like this.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop our recording, but thank you so much. And next month, just people watching, next month, our speaker will be Carolyn Jones, human rights attorney from Alaska, and former Rotary International trustee. So thank you so much.